Howdy y'all, welcome to Rollin' with the Punches. I'm Jessie Punch. I'm so happy you're here. I hope you enjoyed your week off. Well, sort of. Really, the Cup Series was the only series that was off. Y'all were selling out the place at Rockingham over the weekend, so clearly you didn't take the weekend off. But I hope you did have a happy Easter on Sunday. Maybe spend some time with family. Hopefully got a little bit of rest. Because this weekend, it's the big one, baby. We're going to Talladega. You know, Talladega, raised up, whiskey in my glass. I actually don't really know the words to this song. Going around, everybody now, coming in cars and okay. You get the point. Let's get into the interview for this week. We're gonna pretend like that didn't happen, and now I'm gonna tell you that I sat down with Wendy Venturini. What an incredible person. Look, if you don't know Wendy, you've definitely listened to Wendy at some point talking about motorsports, whether it's on television or on pit road. She is a trailblazer when it comes to journalism and media in racing. She is a true veteran in the sense that she is on her 25th year of working in this sport and has done it all from, like I said, both TV and radio, but roles of all different kinds in both facets. So just a really well-rounded, knowledgeable person when it comes to this industry. And on top of that, paved the way for people like me to even be here. And yes, Venturini, as in Venturini Motorsports. Her dad is Big Bill Venturini, brother Billy Venturini, who runs the operation over there now at Venturini Motorsports. And and while we're at it, her mom is Kathy Venturini. Let's just list the entire fam while we're at it. But to that point, that family had a huge announcement this past weekend at Rockingham. After 43 years of operations, they opened their doors in 1982. Venturini Motorsports is officially selling the team and will be handing it over to a new operation, which is really, really big for our sport, especially for ARCA. This is the longest running continuous NASCAR team in ARCA and the winningest at that. So for them to make this announcement was a big one for our sport, but also an incredibly emotional one for the Venturini family as a whole. So Wendy was able to give us a little bit of insight into what that's been like for the family to make that announcement this past weekend. On top of that, of course, she tells some incredible stories about her career and her experiences working in journalism and in racing. And she's just such a kind person. I'm really excited for you guys to see Wendy in this light because she's always telling everybody else's stories. And now I got an opportunity to tell a little bit of hers. So, without further ado, I'll stop yapping and let you guys get to know Wendy Venturini. Okay, wait, no, sorry, I lied. Not yet. Don't get to the interview yet. I lied. I know I say it every week, but if you're not watching on YouTube, go watch on YouTube. They had us over to Venturini Motorsports. We shot this on the floor. The crews were working on the ARCA cars, like 50 yards away from us. You can hear them in the background of the interview. And yes, that shop looks exactly as you would think it would. It's clean, it's beautiful, cars everywhere, and definitely a trophy or two. Okay, now I'm done yapping. Here's Wendy Venturini. Well,
oh, really? Thank you.
I love it. We just had a quick drive-by interview with Big Bill Venturini, and then we have the crews working on the cars over here in the corner.
This is
literally
realistic situation happening right now.
This is a Tuesday at Venturini Motorsports, and we quite literally just picked up and plopped ourselves down here in the middle of the shop.
This is what I do every day when I come over here. Just plop myself in the middle, and I don't belong. They do their thing.
To say you don't belong is comical, and we'll get to that. But first and foremost, Wendy Venturini, welcome to Rollin' with the Punches.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me. This is cool. I love your podcast. I watch them all on Instagram and YouTube, and I really enjoyed your storytelling.
You're so kind.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's very kind coming from you, especially because I really enjoy your storytelling, both when I listen to you on the radio, but also, I mean, I told you before we started, you were on my list of people I wanted to talk to because I've listened to you on other podcasts, and the way that you're able to tell people what it's like to work in this industry and kind of give them that viewpoint is really special.
Yeah, it's, growing up in the industry, I was surrounded by this sport. I was born into it, right? And I was surrounded by a lot of strong women. And my father had that all-female pit crew. So I spent many of my days watching the all-female pit crew do pit stop practice in our backyard. That's where my dad's race shop was in Chicago. And so it was, my mother was the tire changer. My aunt was the other tire changer. And so that's how, like, if you take it back to childhood, like, this is how I was raised. I cleaned the glue off of lug nuts in the parts washer. Like, that's what I did. My dad ran a championship winning team in our backyard in Chicago. And so when we moved to the Carolinas, it was towards the end of my dad's NASCAR and ARCA career. And then my brother took off, and now it's a big development team. But for me, I never wanted to drive. I did not want to work on race cars, but I wanted to be involved in the family business somehow. And Benny Parsons actually was a neighbor of ours here in the Carolinas when we first moved. And I was 15 years old. And I said, Benny, I don't want to work on cars. I don't know. There's really not a place for me. And he said, have you ever thought about going into TV or radio broadcasting? And I said, my initial reaction at 15 years old, well, women don't do that in our sport.
And that's a fair reaction, because
Yes,
there weren't
there
any
wasn't.
women doing
There
that
wasn't.
at the time.
And that's when he grabbed my arm and he goes, exactly my point. And it just planted a seed when I was 15 years old. Hell yeah, I can do this, and I do belong. And somebody like Benny Parsons believing in me is pretty cool, right? So I went down that path and studied media production, communications, did the right thing in school, and then started off my career from the bottom up. I did not start on the air, but I started logging tapes in a production room for NASCAR Productions. Like, that was my first gigs.
I have to back up a little bit, because for you to talk about Venturini Motorsports being built and operated out of your backyard in Chicago as a child, and then now to sit here in, holy cow, this race shop is incredible. And then to be here coming off the news this past weekend of the sale of Venturini, which I know is, that's an emotional one. It's a congratulations are in order, I should say, to everybody here.
Yes.
But it's bittersweet. Venturini Motorsports is the longest continually running, you know this, but for everybody at home, longest continually running ARCA team in NASCAR history. Also the winningest ARCA team in NASCAR history. The legacy that this team has left cannot even be put into words. And I will preface and say, because I know you're going to say it yourself, you're very vocal about this not being your team. You are just a sister of the guy who runs it, and a daughter of the people that built it. But I know there's still a lot of emotion that goes into that news.
Well, yes, this is my family. This is our life. This is our whole entire life is engulfed in motorsports. And I love it when the race fans, thank you race fans, you give me a lot of credit when they say, how's your race team doing? And I'm like, oh, if only my brother could hear this conversation. But my brother, runs this team, manages this team, and has when he took over back in 2008. And so really what my dad started in the 70s at Rockford Speedway in Chicago, and where we are today in the Carolinas, like, it's really a transition of our family, and we didn't come from a ton, and to know where we are today in the sport and the legacy that they leave is bittersweet to have this moment. But I don't know, I'm super proud of what my brother has accomplished, because at the time when my brother took over Venturini Motorsports, my dad was slowing down his career, had stopped racing, and was at the point where they were ready to close the doors. They were out of funds. They were hitting the roadblocks that many of the people in motorsports do. And so my brother really took a chance, and he went to JD Gibbs, and he'll tell you the story. He went to Joe Gibbs Racing and just took an opportunity with Toyota, with Joey Logano, went to Rockingham Speedway, and that really put the team on the map in the driver development arena. And then from there, it took off, right? And so there's like a second legacy that Venturini Motorsports is leaving behind, not only with what my father and my brother did in their racing careers and my father's 2 championships, but then on the driver development side and how we changed the outlook in the arena in motorsports, especially in the ARCA series.
So that decision then to make the announcement at Rockingham was intentional?
Yes. So I told my brother the morning of the presser, I was like, you really should talk about Joey Logano and his win at Rockingham and how that put you on the map. And he's like, Wendy, I got this. I know. But he's so funny. We have a great relationship. And I'm super proud of what they've done here at Venturini Motorsports through the years, and just proud to watch it happen. We're still very family oriented here. I come to the race shop and I pop in here, but obviously I'm not working here, but my nephew is on a bench right behind us right now. He's working, 17-year-old twin nephews. My 14-year-old son is in the race shop right now. My mom, my dad, my brother, my sister-in-law are all here right now. And this is a normal work day at Venturini Motorsports.
This is the definition of a family operation over
yes,
here.
It's still family run.
So what does that mean then for the future of Venturini Motorsports?
So it's a transition, right? Because Venturini Motorsports has been here for so long, and to see the generation after generation. My grandfather Tony raced at Soldier Field in Chicago, and then my father raced starting in Chicago, and then my brother raced. So we are 3 generations deep of racers, but now we're generations deep, still involved in motorsports with, like I said, my twin nephews. My son was at Rockingham Speedway setting up the pits for the first time in uniform for Venturini Motorsports. So it was a proud moment for my mom and my dad too, to have all 3 of their grandsons working in Rockingham. And it's just really cool to see how it's carried on this long, but all good things have to come to an end, and the time was right for my brother, and the time was right for my parents.
Do you remember when they came to you with the announcement of that decision, or were you in on that? How does the family come together to decide to make that sale?
It's been in the works for a very long time, and my brother is very secretive, but he shares everything with me. And so every part of the puzzle I heard about along the way and where they were in the process. So I was involved in what was happening, just so I didn't get blindsided. People were coming up to me. There was rumors already starting. Mike Helton came up to me in the NASCAR garage, and he said, "Oh, I talked to your dad in Daytona. I heard they're selling the team." Come to find out, my dad never talked to Mike Helton, but through multiple people, like it's like a game of telephone, and it got to him, and so I was like, I'm not supposed to say anything. I don't know, Mike Helton, what's going on?
Unsure what you're talking about. Yeah.
So we had a moment. It was funny, but I'm glad it's out there, and this is more. I'm calling it the Venturini Victory Lap, right? So now that the news has been broke, that they can really just enjoy these last few months as Venturini Motorsports. And my brother's going to stay on with the team with Nitro Motorsports for another year. So he'll still be in this building and managing that team for another year.
So we will still have a Venturini influence in the racing side of things.
Yes, my brother will be involved with Nitro Motorsports for a year, and that's what Mike Helton said. He said, "Well, you have to stay on pit road. We need a Venturini in the garage still." And I said, "Okay, I got this. I'm not going anywhere." So I will still be on pit road. I'll be covering the races still, and I'm sure my parents can't stay away. I'm sure they'll make a round at some point at a racetrack. They say they're going to retire, but I don't believe it. Now, my brother, on the other hand, he will ride off into the sunset and go enjoy life. He's been waiting to do some things in his life. He's been fully committed to this race team and to this business for his whole life. And so it's time for him to enjoy some things outside of the sport.
And he's earned it. I'd say he's earned it.
Maybe.
Yes. Oh, maybe.
I guess he's done a thing or two. He's still my older brother. We give each other grief still.
That's what you always have to do. Yeah. You can't ever let that stop.
No.
Well, going back to you and your career, it doesn't at all surprise me when you look at the trail truly that you've blazed through your career, because you look at the family that you grew up in, right? I mean, the influence that you had in your dad and your brother, and then now hearing even more about you saying your mom, and then these other strong female influences around you, it makes even more sense where you got that confidence to take that start. But then on top of that, do you even realize the trail that you have blaze? That's the only way I can put it, for people like me to be in this industry.
Well, really, it's people like my mom that blazed the trail for me, because women weren't allowed in the garage area in the 80s, which is crazy.
That's so wild to
My
think
mom
about.
had to be escorted by NASCAR officials through the garage. So if you were a female, you weren't really in the garage area, right? And so my dad said, well, how do I get her through the garage? And they said, well, only team owners or crew members. And so the very next week, my dad listed my mom as the team owner. And so it was a major flex, right?
Yeah.
So next thing you know, my mom had to be escorted as the team owner through the garage. And she's been the team owner at Venturini Motorsports ever since then. So it's a little side story, but that was only in the 80s. Isn't that crazy?
That's wild. That's really wild to think about.
And to think like where we are today, I remember my first year in television for Speed Channel. And I get this job as a pit road reporter for the truck series. And I was so stoked. And we go to Daytona and we're doing this big photo shoot with some really great legends. This photo is floating around the internet. I'm surrounded by everyone in motorsports broadcasting. I'm the only female in the picture. And they handed me a men's shirt for the photo, right? And so I said, do you think I can get a women's shirt for this photo shoot? And they're like, we don't have any. I was like, do you think we can get some made? Like,
What a novel idea. Wow.
so in the photo shoot, I'm wearing a men's Speed Channel surrounded by some of the greatest legends in motorsports broadcasting. But the photo is so special to me because I'm laughing because that was really like one of those moments. Like the next week I had a women's shirt and it's changed so much since then and where we are today and how many women are in our sport and how many women cover motorsports and what women can wear in the garage area now. Like we have changed our standards. We have changed what's acceptable in society. And so to think when my mom was escorted through the garage in the 80s to where there was never a female as a pit road reporter doing what I was doing at my age at 21. And to where we are today, 25 years later, this is my 25th season. It's just amazing to me that it's been that short of time, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, and I was going to bring it up with you looking at, your accomplishments. You were the first female play-by-play announcer to cover auto racing as a whole. And now I know you joke and you say, oh, I've had this long 25-year career. But the reality is, in those 25 years, to go from you being the first woman to do that, to see how many females we have in the journalism element and area of our sport today, making huge impacts on coverage of NASCAR and all, motorsports, it really is not that much time difference from what we're seeing.
I never set out to be the first female to do anything. It was just the right time, right? I was in that right moment in motorsports, and I had grown up into the sport. I didn't walk into any job. I had to earn it. And I earned my way up that production ladder to get on air for Speed Channel. And when it happened and where we are now, it's changed tremendously. But I never set out to say, I'm going to be the first female play-by-play. I'm going to be the first female on a PRN broadcast to call a race. And it just never crossed my mind. But when those moments happened, I was like, oh, okay. And then they would make a big deal. And I'm like, oh, I just want to do my job. Like, I want to do my job like everybody else here. Can I just excel at what I love to do and what I'm passionate about? It doesn't have to be like a big production or a big media deal, but it always was. But now looking back, it's like, oh man, that was cool. Like they were great moments, and I'm so glad I was a part of history, but never set out to do those things.
For sure.
Yes.
It's important for you to be able to recognize your accomplishments and the legacy that you've left and are continuing to leave on this sport. But I 100% know where you're coming from, because so much of our job, all of our job, it's not about us.
Right.
I am merely the vessel of storytelling or information from what's going on over here. So I can imagine for you to show up to work like everybody else with the same, set out to do the same thing, and everyone's wanting to talk about you and what you're doing here and your accomplishments. You're like, this is out of my wheelhouse. This is not about me. I don't want to make this about me.
I love motorsports. I love telling stories. I love the relationships that have formed and the families that have forged in the garage. It's just, those are the things that I want to bring home to the race fans at home that they don't get to see. And when you make those connections with the drivers, with the crew members, with the crew chiefs, with their families, that's truly how you create real lasting fans in our motorsports industry. And that's how we create the next generation of fans. So to me, like, that's a huge part of storytelling in motorsports, and to make those connections.
How do you do that in your job now? And now you've worked in all different facets of media, from television, now working full-time, focusing on radio. how do you make sure that you stay in touch with these people that you're telling their stories and make sure you're doing it correctly?
That's funny. I don't think about that. I just keep in touch with everyone. They're my family. Yeah. We are a small family that travels the circuit together, and we've been together for so many years. It's funny. A lot of the drivers and crew members that started when I started my career 25 years ago, some of those drivers have retired, as we know. A lot of those drivers have retired. A lot of those crew members have retired, and their children are taking over. So now I'm covering their children, right? You think about the Gillilands and the Blaneys, and that's where I'm talking about that. And then on pit road, too, I have tire changers that have since retired from 20 years ago. And I remember those children being born that are now on pit road changing tires at Penske. And I'm like, what is happening? This is 25 years. And I feel like I'm young compared to some of my colleagues in broadcasting that have been doing this 40 years, how they feel about that. But it's so cool to watch these families, and we are family here in NASCAR and in the motorsports world, and to watch where it goes through the years. It's very natural to keep in touch with anyone, and you seem like it's just like running into family.
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad that was your answer, because I have the same. Similarly, I get asked often about getting into this type of broadcasting and how do you keep up with everything in the news and stuff. I'm like, you just live it. If you're not living it, if you're not just constantly, you don't set aside time to update yourself on NASCAR news.
No, I don't study.
You just always live it. And you talk to your friends, you talk to people, you immerse yourself in it. But going back to your point too about your career, and in those 25 years, you have worked with some of the biggest names in motorsports, both in broadcasting and in, on the team side in driving and crew chiefs and in crew, some of which you didn't even realize at the time, how big they would be in the grand scheme of NASCAR history. Do you have a moment that you reflect on, maybe an interview or a situation that now you look back and go, ooh, that was a big deal?
So yes, I have a lot of those moments, first of all, but one that stands out, Doug Rice, the president of Performance Racing Network that recently retired this year after several years in our sport. Years ago, we were assigned together on a project with DirecTV called NASCAR Hot Pass. And that was a pay-per-view channel where you tuned in to one play-by-play and one pit road reporter. And so I would do NASCAR Race Day pre-race, and then I would change. That's a whole nother story. I would change in like a porta-john in 2 minutes and go do NASCAR Hot Pass. And I would be on pit road as a pit road reporter. Well, one weekend, Doug Rice and I had never worked together, and I was assigned with Doug Rice. This is the president of PRN, and the voice, like his voice is iconic, right? I was scared. I was nervous. I was sweating. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to, I am not qualified to work with Doug Rice. So we meet up, and he's like, Wendy, I am so nervous to work with you. I was like, what? He's like, for what you bring to our sport, I was so excited I was assigned to you. And still to this day, we laugh at that moment because he immediately put me at ease. He's so humble. He's so kind. He's so generous. He shares everything as a mentor. He was a great mentor to me. But that first time we ever worked together, we were both nervous to work with each other, which is insane because he's a legend and an icon. But he's so great. I just talked to him the other day. We keep in touch a lot ever since his retirement too. So we're friends for life.
What a testament. Well, Doug is just wonderful.
Yes.
But just to the people in this sport. Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, it's family. And there really are some incredible people.
There's a lot of people that work in this industry that they can let their egos go to their head, but they don't, right? Very humble in the industry, especially in radio and television, where the cameras are following you around. But the drivers are also great. I have so many stories of leaning on drivers for advice and sharing life, just sharing life with a lot of these drivers. But I think it's really important, especially early in my career, that to earn the respect of them so that you can have a lasting career, because you don't want to go that wrong route and then kind of be written off. On the respect front from a lot of those NASCAR drivers, they share some intimate communication and information with you. If you ran to the camera and blurted it out to the public immediately, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing today, right? Either one of us would. There's a special time and cadence and the way you handle it as a broadcaster that you have to know that right timing on these stories. And so I've never been like the breaking news reporter. That's not what I do. Like, I've always been the one about telling stories, making those connections with our families. I've lived in that coach lot, in that bus for many years. When my son was first born, he traveled the circuit with me, and he traveled 33,000 air miles his first year of life while I was working on NASCAR race day. We had a busy schedule. And so back then, before COVID, it was Thursday through late Sunday that we worked the race weekends. And so my son was on the road with me for many of those years. Our kids played together, a lot of the drivers' kids. We hung out at MRO, which is our Motor Racing Outreach Community Center. And so that's how you become family, right? But no, there's so many good stories, so many good ones. I think about Tony Stewart. Oh, I got to tell his story. So usually people ask, like, who's your favorite person to interview?
Right.
I don't have a favorite.
I get that question a lot, and I always say it's whoever's nicest to me that day.
So I feel like the most intriguing people are the ones that are most memorable for me. So Matt Kenseth, very intriguing, very analytical. I've always loved chatting with Matt Kenseth. Ryan Newman is another one. Very analytical. We'll throw a question back at you. You better be on your toes.
I love interviewing Ryan Newman. Yeah,
I love that. And then Tony Stewart and Clint Boyer were always jokesters. There was one weekend we were at Martinsville Speedway, and I was on the air live, and this is floating around somewhere on YouTube, but Tony Stewart thought he would be funny. I was doing one of my live hits for Speed Channel, and he took brake clean and a blowtorch and sprayed it behind me live on the air, and this huge flame engulfed right behind me, and I felt a wave of heat up my backside, of course, and I never flinched on the air live because I knew he was back there, and I knew exactly when the heat hit my back what was happening.
What was going on. Yeah.
And so I kind of made light of it and joked, and I turned over my shoulder, and he's like giggling like a 12-year-old boy. And so moments like that are hilarious and memorable, but it was just like, hey, you're one of the guys, you know, and that's what it was. And it's one of those moments that I'm still, people still talk about today, 15 years later, but don't get too hot under the camera.
That was probably the most badass shot of you just doing a report.
Oh, it was a big flame.
Flames, like you're a villain walking away from a crime scene. Like, wow. And then also, Tony Stewart would be the only person that's both confident, smart, intelligent, and dumb enough to do something like that and know that it would be just fine.
Yes.
And that nothing would go wrong.
Believe me, I probably got him back in some form or fashion that I can't repeat on the air later. But no, it's good. He was always a jokester. I'm super proud of what he's doing these days, and happily married and a dad now. So that's super cool.
That's also says a lot about you, and going back to, you talking about having to kind of pave your way in this industry, and you earned that spot as one of the guys. They respect you just as another person there that puts in just as much hard work as they do and cares about the sport just as much as they do. And like you said, you have to earn that place in this industry. People know when you're there to give back to the sport and really be a part of this. And for you to have earned that spot says a lot about you.
Well, I think it's really easy, especially as a female covering a male-dominated sport, to kind of question if you belong, right?
Oh, yeah. And
so I always felt like I had a seat at the table. And I think that mindset is what really got me through it, because number one, I wasn't pushed around by the guys. I've never been disrespected, right? And so I think that alone, with my racing history, with your racing history, and your family, your dad paving the way, my dad paving the way, but it wasn't given, it's earned, right? And so once they realize that you're willing to work for it, you want to be the hardest worker. I know you're a hard worker. I've seen you work.
Thank you.
And I love your hustle.
Thank you. That's the biggest compliment anyone could give me.
That's what it takes. Mm-hmm. You have to hustle. You have to be so hungry that nothing is going to get in the way of what you truly want to do, and to be passionate about it. Like, that is what truly successful people do. And that's how you stay here. Mm-hmm. That's how it's going to be long-standing year after year. I've had a great career. I'm super proud of what I've done in 25 years, but I don't feel like it's over yet either, which is funny. It's like, it's crazy that 25 years just blink went by. This is how you hear like older people saying like, it went by so fast. Now I sound like one of those old people. I'm like, it's gone by so fast.
Well, backing up a little bit, what you just said there really resonated with me when you said taking every seat at the table like you deserve it, like you earned it, like you belong there. And I mean, that's something that I really feel like I need to start instilling in myself, because it's one thing to be confident in the hard work that I've put in and show up and know that I'm prepared, but to have a mindset of really walking into those rooms and believing that I do belong there, that is a total different mentality that I have really never thought about. And that just really resonated with me.
You really can't rely on people's opinions on your worth or what your talent is.
Especially
right?
in this industry, yes.
So I always tell this story, especially to young students. When I first started my career in the truck series on the air as a pit road reporter, I was in my second season, and Speed Channel decided not to renew my contract. So this big opportunity for my first time as a pit road reporter, after 2 seasons, they weren't bringing me back. So it was the end of the race season, and you could get real down on yourself real quickly. Like, I don't belong here. Mm-hmm. I didn't do a good job. They let me go because I didn't do my job the way they thought I should do my job. I kept my head high. I put my nose to the ground and just started making phone calls and talking to people and getting feedback. And within 30 days, the same network that just released me from my truck series job, another network executive called me back and said, we made the wrong call, and I want to put you on this show, which was the Cup Series for NASCAR Race Day, the highest rated pre-race show. And I worked on that show for over a decade with over 1 million viewers. Oh. I had an amazing decade on that network. And it was one person's opinion that could have changed my path forever. I could have walked away, right? Mm-hmm. But I didn't. And it just takes one person to believe in you again, right? And another opportunity was presented when one door closed, another one opened. It was a better deal. It was a bigger opportunity. It was a history-making moment for me. And so I always tell that story to, especially the young students, when they get discouraged, like, oh, I can't get a job out of college. And I'm like, so what? Keep working, keep hustling, keep grinding. Your discipline will prove your talent.
I remember that coming out of college and hustling for that first job. But having a job or having a place in this industry and then feeling like that's taken from you, or then having to be on times where you're uncertain of where your place is, that's a different kind of hurt. That's a different kind of heartache that goes into, it just shakes you. And for you to lay it out like that and say, really in a moment like that, you have 2 choices. You can walk away and quit.
Yes.
Or what you did, you put your head down and you fired off those emails and you put yourself out there and you said, all right, if it's not at this network, then what's next?
Right.
And what's next was even bigger and better.
At the same network.
Wow, at the same dang network. And we won't even get into the story and the topic of conversation about not burning bridges there, because that's something you would never do.
And I still don't.
But what a great testament as well to just the idea of walking away with pride, with your head held high, knowing that you are confident in what you gave that network.
With my production job, when I started off logging tapes in the production room, I worked up to a production assistant, to an associate producer, to I was producing a show called NASCAR Victory Lane, the post-race show that was on Fox Sports Net. When that moment came, when they called me about pit road and going on air, I had never been on air before. My producer looked at me and he's like, you got to take this opportunity, but just know you have to have thick skin. You're in a whole different arena when you're out on the other side of the camera. You're behind the camera right now. You're calling shots. You're making these fancy TV shows. When you go out there, the people are going to attack you. And so you have to be prepared for it. And I was prepared for it. But my dad always taught me, don't burn bridges, especially in this sport. We are a small family. You don't burn bridges. My dad, to this day, is very well respected in that garage area. And so I had that instilled in me. And never burn a bridge. What it is, it's okay. We move on. We learn, we grow, and we go on to the next project. And when you were just saying you went to the freelance world, I give you kudos, because it is super scary. It's super hard. When I was 21, that's when I became a freelancer. When we went on air for Speed Channel, we were all freelancers. And so it's always been a freelance gig for me for the last 21 years on the air. I've never had a contract where it's a full-time job, a full-time salaried job. It's always been freelance.
And you have always been on the air since then. Every
21
year
years,
you've
yes.
had it. That is such a flex. Do you realize how much of a flex that is? That's incredible.
It just makes me feel old, Jesse.
It shouldn't make you feel old.
No,
it should make you feel accomplished.
It's incredible. Really. It really is. When people will see me at the racetrack, they're like, "Oh, I miss you. I haven't seen you," because I'm not on TV necessarily every weekend anymore. I feel like saying, I'm right here. I've been here for 21 years. I haven't left the racetrack. I'm just in different arenas. So when I transitioned from TV to radio, yes, it's less people that you're exposed to because you're not on camera. But at the racetrack, it's still exactly the same. And the respect in the garage is the same. And the race fans at the track. And so I still tell the same stories that I did before, right? At just different arenas.
You just tell them differently now.
Yes, I tell them different. I think it's a lot harder as a radio broadcaster than when I was on television because you had pictures to tell your stories, right? And so on radio, we don't. We paint the pictures for the fans at home. And you have to be very particular about how you use your words on radio broadcast to the point where you want to almost smell the rubber on the tires as they come off the car. Like as a race fan, driving down the road and listening to the radio, you want to feel like you're right there on pit road. And that's my job. My job is to paint the picture for the viewer to feel like they're on pit road with me.
Yeah, the coverage on radio is so different than the coverage on television. And to that point, you've done it all. I mean, with you just mentioning that you started in even a more of a producer role, you really have done it all from on camera, off camera, radio, TV. And you mentioned a minute ago race day. So for those at home that aren't familiar with race day, and maybe you're a newer NASCAR fan, NASCAR used to have essentially what we see every Saturday in college game day at universities. NASCAR had race day. Same concept, fans surrounding the table of analysts and announcers, energy on race day. It was spectacular. I mean, that was so many people's childhood growing up, and you were the race day girl. You were the female presence on that show. What do you remember from those years?
Everything. It was a lot of hard work, but totally rewarding. The synergy between the group on NASCAR race day, it just can't be duplicated. They've tried to replicate the show or that feeling through the years. But the synergy between John Roberts and Kenny Wallace, Jimmy Spencer, and then I was on in the garage area, we had Hermie Sadler and Rutledge Wood. I mean, we were truly friends. We still are truly tight friends. We're like, they're my brothers. I'm their sister. And that's still how we function as a family. Like we functioned as a family at work, a very crazy family. Whatever you saw on camera, it was even more insane behind the scenes because we had so many laughable moments between Kenny Wallace and John Roberts. They're fantastic storytellers. And we always had a knot in our stomach from the gut laughs that we had. I mean, it's just what you saw on camera was just a small portion of what was happening the whole entire time we were doing NASCAR race day. For the whole decade, we had a blast. We traveled all these cities. The crew behind the scenes, family members, right? Still to this day, when we see our crew members, if you work NASCAR race day, you're family to us. And so it was really special what we created, and grateful for those moments. I mean, I go back and watch some of those clips. I'm like, how crazy was that? But there was nobody doing it at the time either. I literally had a cameraman and a microphone and was able to like roam the garage and tell all these stories and tell what I saw and take notice and find the stories and tell the stories. There was nobody covering it. So it was news to people. It was something fresh and exciting. We did those grid walks that Michael Waltrip does today. You know, we were doing all those on NASCAR race day. So it's really cool to see how much it's transformed over the years.
It doesn't surprise me at all to hear how much fun you guys had doing
man.
that show, because that translated through watching it. I mean, you can't fake that when you just see the energy and the relationships that you guys had and the laughs, and you could tell you guys were having fun.
Oh, we had a blast. And still to this day, you know, Kenny and Johnny have been back at the racetrack to do trackside live at the stage. And Kenny was like, Wendy has to come over there and do the show with us. And so I did it for a season, and I'm like, you guys, this just isn't feel the same, because I'm like on the stage with you and I'm supposed to be in the garage, and this just feels awkward. Like, this is not how we did it. So I would love to see that show transform to more like what race day used to be. I think it would be super cool to bring that back.
I'm glad you said that, because I was going to agree with you on that and say, I know you guys have done something similar at the SMI tracks. I've seen you at Bristol doing a variation of race day. But I really feel like there is just such a place right now for a program like that. I think it would just resonate so well with, of course, the nostalgia of so many people that grew up watching that on race day mornings, but also then bringing in new race fans. I mean, something like that for NASCAR, it's just so cool. I think I would love to see something like that come back.
I loved, we had the opportunity to do this series called The Real Deal, where they would fly me all over to interview drivers and stories, go to their hometowns, went to Mark Martin's hometown, and I was just everywhere. And we would take cameras in like the most random places. I went to interview Mario Andretti one time at the winery, and it's just like these moments that felt really surreal. Like, how did we get here? And we're telling these amazing stories. And now looking back, I'm like, yeah, they were pretty cool, right? These were great stories. They were great opportunities. And I wish we had more of that in our sport today. I know we are still doing it. We're still going to drivers' homes. We're still telling these stories. And I do love them when I see these real detailed storylines. But they were just really cool to be a part of. And we would come in, out. I had a great team behind us that made it all possible. So it was cool moments.
And it's something about encapsulating these stories. Like, we know these names, but it's something about, like you said, how special it is to sit down with someone and actually put that on tape, have that archive, I guess I should say, of their accomplishments, because we cover them at the track, but it's a total different story when you sit down and you kick your feet back, or you kick your feet up and you kind of let your hair down a little bit.
I remember when I went to interview Junior Johnson, and they handed me a John Deere hat, just like it made me think of this when you're wearing this NASCAR racing hat. They're like, Wendy, we're going to interview Junior Johnson on his farm. We're going to be outside on the farm. It's like 90 degrees. It's summertime, right? So I go over there, and he's in overalls, which was great. So I threw on my John Deere hat, and we just had a great conversation. Like, those moments that you just look back on that you'll never be able to do again, right? And so they're just cool opportunities to be storytelling in the sport for so many years, and to be given that opportunity. I hope you get that chance to go into all these people's homes like you are right now. I just watched your BJ McLeod podcast, and I loved that he invited you into his home. Like, that's super cool. And that says a lot about you, and that they're open to let you into their home. Like, that is another level.
Thank you.
So congratulations.
That really means a lot to me. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. Wow. Because you're right. We need more of that. And that is a lot of what we were setting out to do with this product here, is to tell a lot of these stories so that they're A, not forgotten, or B, don't go untold.
Right.
And in the same light, on the flip side, I had mentioned to you earlier that part of this, I'm kind of compiling a list of what I like to call your next favorite driver, because in the same way that there are so many stories in the history of our sport, there's a lot of really neat up and coming stories too. And I think that there's so many young names. I mean, I see there's names on race cars all around me that we could highlight as your next favorite driver. So for you, obviously having, a hand in the knowledge of the ARCA space, but then also your knowledge of coverage from pit road, is there someone that you recommend to fans to be their next favorite driver?
Yes, her car is directly behind you, Jesse. Isabella Robustto. She's going to win. Absolutely. 100%. She will be our first female to win. She is so smart for a 19-year-old. I did this podcast on sports nutrition, and they had Isabella join me with her Toyota background. And we started to talk about the intricacies of your nutrition as an athlete. And she was on another level as a 19-year-old. I was so intrigued by the knowledge that Isabella has and the guts that she has on the racetrack and the way she carries herself. She's very professional, top-notch, great story, super intelligent. I feel like Isabella Robustto is going to be the next one that's going to break through those scenes and break those barriers and blaze that trail for the next generation.
I second that. I absolutely endorse that recommendation. I got to cover Isabella at New Smyrna, watching her race there. That was one of the first couple times I've really seen her on the track. And you're absolutely right. She does not back down. She goes out there. She fights for every position. And she's so well-spoken.
Yes.
She really has such a bright future ahead of her. I'm glad you highlighted her.
Yeah. She's really cool. And she knows a lot about the nutrition and the knowledge that you have to have for driving race cars. You can't just hop in these race cars, right? No. They are athletes. And I have seen drivers get sick, right? We cover these stories. I'm usually one of the first ones to the race car. I've seen if a driver's gotten sick in a race car, right? We don't always highlight that. But if you've hydrated and you've fueled yourself appropriately, then it usually takes care of itself, and you can usually tell who has not.
Yes. I mean, and you talk about these being athletes. You just look at what they have to do during the week just to get themselves prepped and ready to go restart the entire weekend routine of being prepared to get in and out of the car. It's a lifestyle that you have to live. Yeah.
There was a point, I don't know if you remember this, when broadcasters had to wear those fire suits on pit road.
Oh, yeah.
So, and your father did for sure. And so I would prepare by sitting in a sauna all the time. And I still do today. I prepare for these warm temperatures for races. When you're out there for 8-9 hours, and a lot of times we had to wear fire suits for many of those years. And no, we're not race car drivers. We're not athletes in a race car. It's much harder in those cars, but it's still hard on pit road and running up and down pit road and that many laps and that many hours and the hot sun beating down on you. So I don't care what profession you work in motorsports, you have to be prepared.
Fitness is a big part of your life as
It
well.
is.
You were a business owner on the fitness side. Tell me about your burn boot camps.
Yeah, so it's funny. I was personally changed and transformed as a member at a gym years ago. And I know what Burn Boot Camp did for me. And so I decided, I was still working, obviously, in television and radio. And I decided to become a certified trainer for fun as a passion project. I thought, well, this is cool. Like,
in all your free time, Wendy?
Yeah, in my spare time. And, well, I know a microphone. Like, I can work a microphone. And I thought it was really cool to do burpees and talk about it on a microphone with and do group fitness. So I got my certification. And then I thought, well, that's not enough. Why can't I own and operate these? I can do this. And so I decided to go down that route, owning and operating a burn boot camp almost 7.5 years ago. And it kind of took off and it was successful. And I'm still doing NASCAR this whole entire time, and I still am today. But in the process, COVID hit and another gym opportunity came up for a second location. And so I said, well, why not? This seems like a good opportunity to add another one to the plate. I can handle this. I got this. So
what's one more?
I acquired a second burn boot camp. These are in North Carolina. And then 2.5 years ago, I thought, well, things are going well, but I'm pretty busy. And another opportunity presented itself for another location that was closing, not a burn boot camp, but it was a gym. And the owner came to me and said, I'm out of funds. I'm interested in, would you be interested in taking over my business, turning it to a burn boot camp? And I said, I think I could do this. And so lo and behold, now I own and operate 3 burn boot camps in North Carolina. I have a team of 54 employees. They're amazing. They're all fantastic because I couldn't do what I love to do in NASCAR if it wasn't for them. Really, they've afforded me the opportunity to keep my foot in NASCAR this whole entire time while being a business owner. And it's really hard to manage all the parts and pieces. Of course, anything worth having is worth fighting for and worth working towards. But it's very rewarding in the sense of the lives that we're changing And you see people with alcoholism or drug addiction that come off of that because of their fitness journey and how we've transformed their life. It's not us, it's them. We just gave them the tools and resources and a home, right? And so I've opened up 3 fitness homes, I say, and have transformed thousands of lives. It's so cool. I mean, cars going in circles is cool too, but transforming lives has been fun.
That's amazing. To be a business owner is one thing. To have 3 locations and do everything that you continue to do with your broadcasting career, I don't know how
It's
you
insane.
were Superwoman.
No.
That's amazing.
It's a level of maybe some stupidity sometimes.
Oh,
So
stop. Well, you had a great role model, or I should say, someone to look to when it comes to owning a business, as in your family. Were they
yes.
a big instrumental part of you having that confidence to take that on?
So this is a funny story. You know, my dad had Amoco service stations. Growing up, we had Amoco gas stations. My grandfather owned Amoco gas stations. My father owned 3 Amoco gas stations. And the same exact story. It's ironic that my dad opened up one Amoco, then a second Amoco, and then headquarters basically called him and said, hey, this one, here's another one. And the same thing happened with me with Burn Boot Camp headquarters calling me about the second location. So we've almost had the same journey, how my dad ended up as a franchise owner with Amoco service stations, and my journey now with Burn Boot Camp gyms. So I guess I was learning all those years and just didn't even realize it, right? But I was a part of that conversation. We're very family oriented. So I was always at the dinner table hearing these conversations, listening about payroll, talking about revenue, profit margins. Like, these are normal conversations in my household. And so it just naturally happened. It's not, again, something I was setting out to do. I'm going to go open up 3 businesses, never in my wildest dreams. But here we are, and I just can't walk away from NASCAR because I love it. So I try to manage all 4 of my businesses with my 3 Burn Boot Camps and then my NASCAR business alongside, and stay pretty busy with all of it.
I can imagine. I can imagine you do.
I keep saying I'm going to retire and take on less work, but then more work comes, and I love it. I love what I do. It's not work. This is not work. If you're passionate about what you do and, you know, find something that you love to do, it doesn't feel like work, right? And so this doesn't feel like work to me. This is my family. This is my passion. And it's just a little bit of a, you know, airplane ride to a city to go do some work, and I come back and then I operate my businesses.
Go see your friends on the weekend.
Yeah,
see the
catch
family,
up with family.
Come home, see the family during the week.
Yeah.
It's a nice way to live for sure. Well, that being said, I mean, you've done a lot in your career. Is there anything that you, like a bucket list thing that you think would be really cool, an event to cover, a position to hold?
I am not a person that is like, I do set goals. It's not that I don't set goals. I do set goals, but I also just kind of take one day at a time. I'm so laid back. My brother laughs. We are polar opposites. My brother always has a plan and has something that he's working towards. And me, I'm like, oh, this is a great Monday.
Let's tackle Tuesday next.
Let's take one day at a time. And so I've never looked too far ahead. I enjoy what I do, and while I'm enjoying it, I'm just gonna take every day that I can. I try to sprinkle in a lot of fun along the way, especially with my 14-year-old son, and get away and do things and disconnect. I think it's really important to still have that family life, you know, and do something outside of the racing world sometimes, but it always naturally just brings us back in.
Well, Wendy, before I wrap up with you, I do a segment called Long Story Short, because I'm the queen of saying, well, long story short, and then here's the 2-disc DVD set version of whatever story we're telling. So the point is, though, you can make this answer as long or as short as possible. That's totally up to you. 3 questions. First question being, when was the last time you cried?
Saturday, Rockingham press conference, when my family announced that they were selling the team to Nitro Motorsports. I knew it was coming. I told you this, Jesse. I wouldn't go to the Speedway for the presser because I was afraid I was going to cry.
Because of that reason, you
because
didn't want
I
to
was
cry?
like, I'm going to sob in front of all my media friends. And so I watched it on Zoom Live. I had the link. There was
Where were you
there was a
watching
private link. I was at my house. I had my son, and I'm like, come here, Caleb. Here it comes. And the camera's like directly on my brother's face. And I just got a little teary-eyed because it was finally here. The day we had talked about for a very long time now was coming out in the public, and now everyone was going to know. And I remember a media member, we joked about this this weekend as a family. A media member asked my brother, well, are you going to just ride off into the sunset? And my brother, and so me live at home, I said, of course he is. You don't know Billy very well. That's exactly what he's going to do. And my brother giggled, and he looked off camera, and my dad's in the room. And he said, my dad's laughing right now because that's exactly what I'm going to do. Like, my dad and I had the exact same reaction in two different cities at the same time. So it was kind of funny. I was like, oh my gosh, there's Dad and I know. We know what Billy is. He wants to go enjoy life. So I give him credit for that. Yeah.
I don't blame him at all. Also, very understandable cry. Yes, that one's very understandable.
It was bittersweet. It's happy tears. It's a lot of history. And to see what this place is going to look like after October 15th of this year, it's going to change. I know Nick Tucker, who's taking over the team, said he's going to have an ode to Venturini Motorsports. He's going to have a V on his car next year in 2026. So that would be cool to see.
That's awesome.
But the actual name, Venturini Motorsports, will not be on the building anymore, which is kind of surreal. So I might cry the day the sign comes off the shop here.
How long have you guys been in this shop?
Since 1993, my dad built this. My dad moved from Chicago before us to build this building for his racing career. And so when we got here, the shop was built, the house was built. He waited for us to finish our last school year. I was in 8th grade, so I moved when I was a freshman. And this was actually built before anything else in our family in North Carolina. So this is really like the start of it and the heart of what got us to North Carolina.
Wow. Okay, question number 2. When was the last time you did something that you just remember feeling an immense amount of pride in what you accomplished?
Oh gosh, there's so many things. It has to do with my son, Caleb. He's 14. Even just this weekend, he finally had the opportunity to go to the racetrack, to Rockingham Speedway, and work with my family, and that's never happened. He's always been a spectator, right? So this weekend, because of the announcement, because of where we're headed, and the history is coming to an ending of an era, I thought it would be really cool for my son to actually work on the team. And so they put him in uniform. My brother said, we'll pay. He's trying to earn money for his first car. And so he goes to the racetrack and puts on his Venturini uniform. My 2 twin nephews, Luke and Max, are also working that day. So all 3 grandsons are working for Venturini Motorsports at Rockingham Speedway. So that moment to me was a lot of pride because it's been so many generations deep in our family. And now this next generation is getting a little taste of it before that era comes to an end.
And I love that till the very last day, Venturini will be working in this shop. Venturini of all generations will have a part in this team being successful.
Yes, and what you can't see, we're in one building here on Pitt School Road. There's another building next door, and that they're keeping to make a museum for Venturini Motorsports. This is my dad's passion project. So he's taking, I think, about 5,000 square feet, and he is putting his championship winning car, my brother's winning car from Toledo. He's putting some classic cars that he has, his father's truck that he has, and then all the trophies that we've acquired through the years. You walk through the lobby here at Venturini Motorsports, there's like 5 trophy cases, and some great NASCAR drivers are all over those trophies. And so they're making a museum next door. So moving forward after 2025, race fans will still be able to stop by and see Venturini Motorsports Museum.
That's great news.
Yeah, it's cool.
That's great news. I know. I was going to say, is that enough square feet for all those trophies?
Probably not. My dad, he's like, well, I'm a lot like my father. So we're a little disorganized. Hearts are super big, not organized the greatest. So I know my mom will have to oversee that project.
Can relate. Can relate. Okay, final question. What is one piece of media, it can be a song, a podcast, a show, a movie, literally anything, that you would recommend for our viewers to check out?
You got to check out Jesse's podcast. If you're just now tuning in for this first interview, go back and watch the other ones. Seriously.
Thank you. Go on.
Because you're truly storytelling. I love it.
Thank you.
This is why I was almost shocked that you called me so soon on your podcast, because I've really thoroughly enjoyed it. You're telling stories that people haven't heard, and you're getting to these the root of people's emotions. And I loved watching that unfold. And there's not a lot of people doing this right now to that degree. And so I respect that. I honor that. It reminds me a lot of my career. And I said at the start of this, I did a podcast before podcasts were cool 20 years ago.
Again, paving the way once again, per usual.
And so it's funny how now the podcast space in that world is huge. Instagram didn't exist when I was in the heart of my career, which is crazy, right? Instagram wasn't even there. We had cell phones, I promise.
You're like, I'm not that old, I promise.
Right. But I remember when Instagram started, we were deep into NASCAR racing. I'm like, what is this Instagram? But to where the motorsports world is going with all of our podcasts out there, with all the different media. But I give you credit. No, I love it. You're going places. I'm excited for you.
Thank you. Yeah. I don't know if you know how much that means to me, so thank you.
Well, your dad was amazing, and is amazing. But I remember watching him growing up, and how much my family respected your father. And like I said, that doesn't immediately mean that you're going to be given a golden spoon and you're going to be given all these paths to walk down. You have to walk them. You have to earn it, and you have to walk the walk. And just because your family's in the sport doesn't mean you immediately have success.
If anything, sometimes I feel like I have to work harder to prove that I'm supposed to be here.
Yeah, prove that you have a space and that you're, and then I live up to my father's expectations, and I live up to the Venturini name. That's really important to me, and I know it's important for you and the Punch family. So I respect that, and just a big fan of yours.
Thank you. I mean, and thank you for everything that you've done for the sport and for me just in the couple of years that I've known you. I really appreciate you.
I did this women's seminar for business women at Bristol Motor Speedway a couple of weeks ago. And they asked me, do you mentor anyone? And I was like, that's a silly question. Of course I mentor. Yeah. I mentor everybody. And so I brought up this story. Andrew Curlin, who does Dirty Mo Media with Dale Jr.'s podcast, he worked his first PRN race this year and at Bristol Speedway, at Bristol Motor Speedway for the Cup race. And so I met Andrew when he was 11 years old. He came through the garage area. I was working NASCAR race day, and he handed me his business card when he was 11. And he said, I want to do what you do. And normally you, most people would probably shrug it off, but I made it a huge deal. I took a photo. We did a mock interview. I kept his business card. So lo and behold, Andrew starts working with us this year on PRN, and I told his dad, I was like, I'm going to find that photo. So I went back to the archives from when he was 11. Now, he's only 23 now, so it was 12, 13 years ago.
But still.
And I found the photo, and so we recreated at Bristol Motor Speedway a couple weeks ago and did a side-by-side of where he was when he was 11 years old when he approached me, and I remember the interaction very clearly. And made a big deal of it, and to where he is today. That's a perfect example. Don't give up on what you want to do. Don't give up on your dreams. And people that say, I want to do what you do in NASCAR. Well, okay, do it. Make it happen. Go out there, meet the people, put yourself out there. Make a business card when you're 11 years old.
I was going to say, but if you know Andrew Curlin, that doesn't surprise you at all.
Not at all.
But that's an awesome story.
But that's the kind of stuff that you have to be willing to do as you grow up, to put yourself out there and get uncomfortable and get a little vulnerable to make sure that you put yourself out there and people know you, people know your story, and that how bad you want it. I could tell that kid wanted it when he was 11, and here he is now working the Cup races with me on pit road. So it's a pretty cool story.
What you couldn't see in that interview is every member of the Venturini family, at some point or another, stopping by the table just to say hey or check in with Wendy. Quite literally every single one of them. It was kind of funny. We really just felt like we were a part of the Venturini family on a Tuesday, right there in the middle of the shop. I told him, put us to work, but I don't think he wanted us to touch the race cars, which is completely understandable. But all that to say, very special people, very welcoming, and just made us feel like family. So thank you to the entire Venturini fam, and Wendy, of course, both for the interview, but also just for all the kindness that you've shown me over the years. I really appreciate you, probably more than you know. Well, that's all I got. I'll see you guys this weekend in Talladega. I hesitate to say this, but I will be on the Boulevard Friday night for work purposes, okay? There's a parade, 7:30 on Friday. I'm doing something or other in that. I don't quite know what my role is yet, but I will be there. First timer on the Boulevard, so if you see me, go easy on me, please. I've seen it during the day, obviously, but never after the sun goes down. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little afraid. But I'll report back next week and let you know how it goes. All right, that's all I got for you. As always, I love you. Thank you for listening. Mom, I love you so much. Thank you for listening. And as always, but especially going into this weekend at Talladega, I want to send you off with the wise words of my mother. Don't be a dumbass, okay? I love y'all. Bye.